let's get into the Disclosure Project. For 100 plus years, advanced technology has been seized, isolated, and hidden away. This has suppressed the advancement of technology and human progress. The Disclosure Project archives include government documents from the United States, Canada, Australia, Russia, and the UK, 145 top secret facilities and base maps, 755 now, witness accounts from military, corporate, and government sources, 121 UFO crash retrievals.
Yep, that's all in our archive.
What are some of the 145 top secret facilities that you know about?
Well, everyone talks about Area 51. That's an old one. It's still operational, and particularly, S3, S4, Pahut Mesa, out in Groom Lake.
Are these in the U.S.?
Yeah, this is Nellis.
Okay.
That one. And that's operational, has been since the 50s. A more state-of-the-art one is actually in the Dugway Proving Grounds, which is in Utah.
Is this the one that you disclosed at the conference?
Yes.
I'm going to put a picture up of it right now.
And so that facility, there's something called the Avery sector, Avery, where there are these assets. There's an extraterrestrial vehicle that was being studied there when one of our witnesses, I think he was there in 2009, when that object had been downed. They're downed by these electromagnetic pulse weapons because the ET craft are completely electromagnetic. So, a kinetic weapon would not be so effective, missile or a laser. But an electromagnetic pulse or scalar weapon stuns them and they'll come down. Sometimes they crash, sometimes they're intact. If they're intact, then you have the whole thing to study. And that's where this man was in a facility where they had an entire intact one. And then, there's a vast underground facility there.
So they're downing these aircraft with basically a directed EMP weapon.
Yes, but are more sophisticated than the legal constitutional government would know about because you're going to add to normal EMP, let's call it a supercharged part of it that's scalar, what I mentioned before, where it's a point that goes out longitudinally without the waveform.
Okay.
So that's why, light propagates at 186,000 miles every second. These are not limited that way because it's a point that goes out straight line. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
So now you're exceeding the speed of light.
It's essentially teleportation.
That's different. We'll get into that if you want to. But no, I'm talking about just a type of energy weapon. Mm-hmm. But it can also be used for communication. And I think in the old days, in the early 20th century, mid-20th century, there were people who stumbled across, and Tesla wrote about scalar waves.
So hold on.
Can be used for
this
other.
This isn't a point A to point B line. It's not linear. It's not a linear weapon. If I shoot a gun, the bullet goes, you can see it.
Right.
And if I shot a laser, you could see it, travel from point A to point B. Are you saying that these weapons do not?
Well, they go from point A to point B, but bypassing linear space-time, meaning they're in the entangled quantum.
Okay.
So quantum entanglement basically is where every point in space and time is connected through what's called quantum entanglement. Mm-hmm. So when you have a quantum scalar weapon, then you're able to target an object at multiples of the speed of light. And those weapons they're very dangerous because one of the things we have to be careful of is while these civilizations that are extraterrestrial are, to me, they're the equivalent of Gandhi, that they haven't struck back at all. But I'll be honest with you, the more these weapons get perfected and you get into multiple generations of them, the more humans are a risk to other planets.
For now, back to the underground facility.
Mm-hmm. That's a big one at Dugway. It's what this gentleman firsthand had not been in it. He has the name of a scientist, senior scientist, U.S. government that was at the Dugway facility, and he said that the complex that's underground goes out, it's about 1,300 square miles. Not acres, miles.
1,300 square miles?
Yeah.
What's in there?
All this stuff, the technologies, the craft, operations. We know that I had a man who was out there who had special night vision. He was special operations and embedded, but he was a scientist. And he was out there, and wee hours, there were these massive triangular objects, silent, launching from that area, but underground, and would come out over the range. No lights on them, totally, fully operational. And, you know, those are one category of the man-made advanced technology platforms, or alien reproduction vehicles, some people call them. There are quite a few out there at Dugway.
These government documents from the U.S., Canada, Australia, Russia, and the U.K., what are some of those documents?
Oh, they run the whole gamut. For example, I have a document, wasn't declassified, but it was provided to me by a source from Area 51, Nellis, and it lists as of the early 90s. I got it in the 90s, all the code numbers and code names that were on a security alert because there were a group of civilians who were trying to spy on the range, where they had to shut everything down because there was a large group. And it was a security alert, but it was an NRO document, National Reconnaissance Office document. And it had key names on it. It had a Magi on it, the Majority Joint Intelligence Committee, or MAGIC. It had Cosmic Ops on it, Royal Ops. It had Blackjack Control on it. It had key actionable intelligence, and that's one of the documents I gave to some of the folks in the White House over the years, or Pentagon, because it's a legitimate document that actually gives specific code word and numbers that were out in that particular area. And it's still there. I mean, it's not like you pick up an asset like that and move it to where. So we know where they are. And that's why our 145 facilities, I've just learned of a new one that we'll be putting on that map soon. It's supposed to be taken there.
Where's this?
I can't say where, but
Right
now.
Can we put the map up?
Yes, and if you put the map up, you'll see many of them are places people know. They know Edwards Air Force Base, but where? Where do you go to at the Nellis Range? It's a huge range, Air Force Base. And then the Nevada test site, which is where we tested nuclear weapons, going north. But out there's some very key assets. And there's a Delta Force Hilo base out there that's used for retrieving extraterrestrial vehicles and retrieving downed, accidentally crashed man-made ones that malfunction. So we have a man on our team who was on a retrieval operation initially for conventional aircraft, jets, for their classified components. And then he got read into an operation retrieving the man-made ones, which blew his mind, the Raytheon and Northrop ones. Then he got read into the ones that are, he was on one operation where we stunned one of these extraterrestrial vehicles. This one I showed at the event. And it didn't crash. It got stunned and landed out there on the range, the Nevada test range. And they were moved in helos to retrieve it. And that interesting account of that, it began to come back to life. And an opening came out of it, and it looked like a fruit roll-up came down. And a couple of extraterrestrials emerged that he literally was in 3 or 4 feet of them. We have the drawing of them, of what they look like. But what happened is that at that point, that craft was being checked by helicopters in the air, as well as one of these ARVs, man-made ones, the triangular. When this thing began to sort of glow, reddish, and come to life, boom, our aircraft took off. Now the boots on the ground there and the choppers on the ground, after a few minutes, they were all, I know this sounds like Star Trek, they were all teleported back to the helo base instantly.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they weren't harmed. None of them were harmed. But apparently this whole event convinced this particular operator to get out of that system, because he knew what he sensed from these ETs was that they were completely benign, very much here to help us, and we were doing horrible things to them. And they also said, we know what you're doing. We're not going to allow you to do this much longer. It was sort of a warning. That happened in 2000 and I believe that was 2010, 11 time period.
So what's your goal with the Disclosure Project?
Well, our goal is, first of all, to get this information to the key policymakers and people in the government who have responsibility for our national security, but also in other countries as well, and to the public so that they understand the difference, in my opinion, between the false information being purveyed, which is the dominant information that's out on the internet and Hollywood and shows, and the real information that needs to be understood by the public so that the public isn't deceived. So we have both an internal governmental objective to guide the government in understanding this and getting them as much detailed, actionable intelligence as possible. Like the details, and this is how they've gotten this far. The reason the bill that was just came out of committee in the Intelligence Committee is because they now understand, if you read that bill that is given sort of a safe harbor 6 months amnesty period for these corporations and people to come forward or they'll be prosecuted. That is in the bill that left committee. And I've been pushing for this for a long time. The first time I recommended it was in 1993 to Bill Clinton, and nobody wanted to do it. Now it's going to happen, but that sets a clock. And so the Disclosure Project's objective is to give the legal government of the United States that we have allegiance to, and that we, the people, the public, the information, so that these rogue and very criminal activities can be brought under proper supervision and control, access control. And that's not the case right now. And it's dangerous that it isn't. So it's a very big step that first in December, they signed this law allowing whistleblowers to come forward through the Pentagon process, which is a top secret SCIF situation. But now this bill is going to explicitly state that these corporations, anybody having exotic materials, clearly referring to extraterrestrial type materials, technologies, bodies, those have to be disclosed and turned over to the legal U.S. government, or they will then be subject to prosecution criminally. So that's a 6-month window now. So that clock has started.
That's a 6-month window.
Yep.
And you're also going to make all of this, which a lot of it already is, open source information.
Yes, if we could get some... You have to imagine myself and my wife and a few volunteers trying to scan, organize 8-10 terabytes of data, and then create a database system that's searchable, and then eventually get it on the internet. Now, what we do have to redact, the unredacted archive I'm giving to the top investigators in the Congress and the Pentagon group. The White House got a redacted version. Because they're not really leaning into this much yet, which they should be. Mm-hmm. But I have someone in the White House military office that we're providing information to. But the redacted one, just to be clear, the only thing we're holding back are the personal names of these, hundreds of whistleblowers who don't want their names known, mm-hmm. Except under certain conditions. And also, if they have a DD-214, I'm not going to release in a non-secure manner. So the folks who have the unredacted, those go into a SCIF, they go into a vault, they have it. Now, I will say on the record, anyone who says the U.S. government is not in possession of all the facts and the actual intelligence to get to the bottom of this is a liar or ignorant. They're either a liar or they're ignorant, because that was handed off 3 weeks ago, all of it. So there's actually no excuse now. The only excuse they'd have now is that they're part of a cover-up, in which case they should be prosecuted. And I'm saying even the people in the Aero office and the Pentagon, they either move on this and do it with integrity, or they should be prosecuted.
let's move into your new documentary, The Lost Century.
Sure.
It's all about advanced technology, how it's been around for over 100 years but kept secret. 0-point energy,
Yep.
a lot of people call free energy, is also called the quantum vacuum. This would basically eliminate the need for fossil fuels, utilities,
Wind,
everything.
solar. Yeah.
Winds. Every means to power that we have now would make it completely obsolete. It would be unlimited, clean, and
Right.
free energy.
And we've had it for 100 years.
How do we? So let's get into this. How did you discover this stuff?
Well, it was an outgrowth of me looking into the UFO UAP issue. Because once you realize these objects are real, three-dimensional, the very first question, actually, when I go up to Capitol Hill or someplace, I'll put up the footage that the Pentagon said, this is a real 3D object, infrared sensors, no heat, no jets, no rockets, and certainly no nuclear power plant on it, because, I mean, those things are hot, right? Mm-hmm. There have been nuclear-powered aircraft and satellites. But I said, how is that moving at those speeds and then straight up against gravity? This is the alternative energy and propulsion systems. So I always tell people, forget all the mythology and everything. It's an alternative energy system. Now, it's a very advanced one because it also flies. Now, to be really clear, I am not advocating the release of the things that fly yet. Why? It's a missile delivery system. So you don't really want to open source an electrogravitic anti-gravity system that allows terrorists in Mogadishu to get a dirty bomb over downtown DC in 2 or 3 seconds, right? No. But the things that would sit at your house, like your heat pump, all right, or in the hood of your car, that would run your car or your factory or your business or your home, those devices that are not things that fly, those are just pulling energy from the fabric of space-time around it. And physicists have estimated that the volume of space in a coffee mug has enough potential energy to boil off all the oceans of the world. Is that much latent energy. So tapping into it to run the entire United States, the whole world, be like taking a thimble of water out of the Great Lakes. So it is what, Tesla called it the infinite energy field. And it began to be discovered, if you look at it all the way back, but as soon as you step into the reality, the three-dimensional reality of these UAPs and UFOs, you immediately begin talking to people, and this is what happened to me in the early 90s, to people who know the physics of the energy systems, because these things are not using oil, gas, coal, nuclear, what have you. So it's a natural extension of the problem. And I point out to people, one of the central reasons for the secrecy that got out of control under Eisenhower's last 4 years as president was because once they realized how this works, they realized, the big industrialists and financial and global moneyed people, banking, this would be the end of that entire sector of the macroeconomic system. Well, that would have been great if it had been transitioned before I was born in 1955, because look at the world we have now. But it really could have started coming out in the early teens and 20s. If you look at the documentary, The Lost Century, the subcaption is, and how to reclaim it. We talk about how we need to come together as a people and develop these energy generation systems and open source them, meaning that it's no patent, no intellectual property held back at the first level of this, because the patent office will seize it. We prove that in the documentary. We have a national security order on a patent that a scientist I know submitted. We took his name off of it. So the question is, are there some people who can financially put up the funds, and it needs to be a substantial amount, 50 to 100 million to start, to create a high energy physics lab that develops this and gets it out to the public, no intellectual property holdback? Or if there was that much funds available, we could go to some of these scientists who probably have these and say, look, we want to just acquire this. Here's $10 million. Now go and relax. Let us move this out to the public. You can't do it. Most of these engineers and scientists and inventors think they're going to do it the way they do a new software program. And they're going to try to monetize it through intellectual property protections and patent. You cannot do that with this because the system is so completely weaponized and corrupt. And I'm talking from the patent office on. That the only way to do it is to do an open source release of it massively through the internet blockchain. So that's what we're doing. But the technology, if you look at this documentary, you'll see this trajectory. There's a great photograph with Nikola Tesla with this engineer farmer, self-taught guy. I believe it was 1908 or 1902, the caption. And this guy had like an earth battery. He had some metallic stakes and wires in the ground. He was pulling resonant energy. It was running his farm.
Wow.
Even my father, I wasn't alive. He was born in 1916. This was before my dad, who was hand-to-hand combat in World War II with the Japanese amphibious landing unit. But I'm going, what the heck? We have our planet. Half the planet's population doesn't have indoor plumbing. 3 billion people have no way to cook their food. They're cutting down the rainforest. 3 billion. The biosphere, even if you don't think climate change is real, 5 million people die from breathing particulate matter, soot, all over the world from this noxious stuff we keep burning. Yeah. So we need to take care of our creation, the earth, and our future. And it isn't going to happen with a windmill and a solar panel. Believe me, no way you're going to run 8 billion people off of those technologies. We're going to have innovative, high-tech solutions to the energy and environmental and poverty problems.
Look, I just want to backtrack on that real quick. When you're talking about people dying from inhaling these particles and these chemicals and shit, this unfortunately is a touchy subject. The pollution and climate change and all this shit, but what I can attest to that is 100% fact is what you just said, because I've been to these parts of the world.
Yeah,
I've spent over a decade in these parts of the world, and you see all these veterans coming home dying of weird cancers from shit that they breathed in overseas.
Yep.
And I can tell you, in the wintertime in Afghanistan, the soot is so thick in the air that if you go outside we're talking just 5 minutes, and you go back inside and spit in the sink or spit in whatever,
blow your nose,
you're going to spit gray.
Right.
But
those fine particles get into your lungs and then your circulatory and heart and cause a huge number of problems, not just cancers, but I'm talking heart, lung disease. So why are we doing that when these technologies have existed? Now, this same corrupt organization, because it doesn't just deal with one issue, have been responsible for basically hoovering up, vacuuming up all these technologies for 100 years. I know people personally who have been murdered because they had one. And it's because they, very against my advice, AMA, against medical advice, against their own security interest, they wanted to keep it secret. And they thought they were going to be so clever, and they were going to outfox this big super state of thugs. I'm going, dude, you have no idea what you're up against here. And then they think they're going to do encryption and keep it secret. I'm going, oh my God. You think this group needs to worry about an electromagnetic encryption when they can target a volume of space anywhere and extract anything being said? I understand it, because if you're in the normal engineering world, you're not going to know this. It's hard to believe it. But I said, if you don't believe it, just wait. You're going to be dead, or it'll be confiscated. And you're lucky if all they do is come in and kick your door in, hit you with a national security order, and drag it off. That's your best outcome. That's your best case scenario if you do it the conventional way. So I go, look, it's like, what is that saying attributed to Einstein? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. The reason I can prove that the strategy most people use doesn't work is that we can prove these technologies have been around for over 100 years, and you and I are still tied into a coal-fired or gas-fired power grid, right? So if the strategies, if the conventional business and technology strategies were going to work, they would have worked before you and I were born. So we need to think. We need to have different thinking about this strategically. So what we're saying is, all of these technologies, if they're used for peaceful purposes, would really give us a whole new civilization. Beautiful. Now, the downside is, given what humans are, we like to take any new technological breakthrough and weaponize it. But the truth is, they've already done that. We've already weaponized these things.